Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Conversations with Sarge, brought to you by Combat News, where we put veteran policy in perspective. And today, we are blessed to have the man, the myth, the legend. That's what I call him. The Air Force man himself, Mega Nuke. People who don't know Mega Nuke, you're going to get to know him. And if you already know him, you're going to get to know him even more. And I know by the end of this, he's going to be a very, very well-known household name for the veteran community. So welcome, Mega Nuke. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me on your podcast, brother. I've been waiting for this.
Absolutely, man. We've been waiting to have you for sure. I know we've been talking about this for a long time, and now that we got it up and running, we had to make it happen, We had to make it happen. So
Hell yeah.
before we get into, the military stuff that we talk about here on Conversations with Sarge, can you give us a little bit of a brief history about, your life, where you came from, and where you're living now, if it's the same place?
Excellent question. I was born up here in Michigan, where I currently reside. And at the tender age of 3, my father decided to go chase one of my uncles who was in the car crushing business down south in Arkansas. I know a lot of people, they look at they hear the guy online and then they're going to see me in person and go, yeah, you're a Southern guy. Oh, no, I'm not. I was raised Southern, but yeah. So from the age of 3 till graduated from high school, I was raised in Arkansas, and that got a lot of Southern stuff in me, but still the nastiness of some of the Northern guys. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, and then right out of high school, I didn't have any aspirations to go to college, like we were talking on the conversation we had before the podcast. I was a guy that had all of my credits by 11th grade, could have graduated in 11th grade, but I decided, hey, you know what? We're just going to run this out a little bit longer. And I had 2 classes I had to take. I had to take psychology and government civics, 1 semester of each for a whole year of education. And so I had to have a bunch of filler classes. And one of the classes I took, I'd already taken all the art classes I could take, and I failed that class that year. God.
Man.
So that junked my, well, that wasn't the only class I failed, but anyway, let's just say I didn't graduate at the top of my class. No valedictorian coming here, but anyway. So college wasn't in the cards for me, and my father worked for a company that he worked in accounts receivable. That wasn't my gig. I'm not a sit behind the desk. Oh shit! I just told on myself I'm sitting behind the desk now. But anyway, I'm not a sit behind the desk kind of guy. And well, I was in Army ROTC while I was in high school, and I really enjoyed that. Give me a little bit of structure outside of the family life, and then decided to go down to the recruiter's office one day, and I wanted to be a Marine. That
Mhm.
was my goal. I'd already had enough of the Army stuff, and so I walked up to the recruiter's office there, and there's 6 guys sitting in there, and half of them were in their dress blues, and the other half got their PT workout shit, and they're pumping weights and all this stuff. And I'm like, uh, that don't look real appealing to me. So the next door over was the Navy, and those guys in their bell bottoms. I'm sorry, I love my naval brothers, and sisters, but yeah, me and bell bottoms, that wasn't ever going to happen. And they had the same amount of people in there, and they were doing PT too. I'm like, holy crap! So then I moved down to the Army one, and I'm like, yeah, they had like 4 or 5 desks in there. And they were mulling around doing their stuff. Obviously, I'd already been down that road. I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. The next door over was the Air Force. The lights are out. There's 2 desks, and it says, be back from lunch in 2 hours. And I went, ding, 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 ding. That's the one for me. Next day when they got back, I told my dad, I'm like, yeah, I want to get in the military. And at that time I was 17. I couldn't sign up myself. He had signed for me. So he went down to
Yep.
the Air Force recruiter with me, and we got things all set up. And well, that's what started my Air Force career. And
That's awesome. That's
I'm
too
glad I
funny,
made that
man.
choice. And based on that story, that is not, I shit you not, that is exactly how it went down.
That's
It was
that's
not
perfect.
any of that other stuff, man.
That's a
But
perfect
yeah, and then
analogy, the way to put it, because when we talk to other branches and I talk to people myself, I tell people when they ask me, like, what would you tell your younger self? I say, check the Air Force recruiting office. That's what I would have done. You know what I mean? Because even when I was in the military, Mega, I was a commo guy. And when I got to hang out with the Air Force, to go to Air Force barracks, when I was deployed and stuff, and when they say the Air Force that lives a different life, they most definitely do. And if I could have changed and been like, "Hey, take me in, coach," I would have done it. I don't want to sound like wanted to get out from doing army work, but I'm like, man, I could do the same thing I'm doing in the army. Me being commo, but I could live a little bit better. Not have to do this crazy amount of stuff that I did. But that is funny that the way you put it. That's how you found out you wanted to be in the Air Force. I'll be
that's
back.
how I found
I'll
out
be
I wanted to
back.
be in the Air Force. And
That's
and I hate when this conversation comes up. I'm proud that I served in the Air Force, okay? But I'm gonna be honest with everybody, and anyone that out there isn't real excited about the difference between the Air Force and the other branches of service. I mean, can you imagine what it's like to be at Space Command?
yeah.
Anyway, them guys probably fly 2 chairs on hoverboards and shit. So, but anyway,
We got to
uh,
find a Space Force guy to have on. We got to find him. We got to
yeah,
find out what it's like, man.
yep, absolutely. Well, I think you don't see a lot posted online of them, but anyway, getting
No.
back to that, I hate bringing up that I'm an Air Force guy because I always get shit from every other branch of the service, and I just keep going back to this one thing. It was a choice. You had a choice. You wanted
Yes.
to be a badass. Go be a badass all you want. And the Air Force. I knew because of my Army upbringing in a ROTC, and also when I got to my first duty station, which was at Hickam Air Force Base, by the way,
Oh wow. Okay.
you got all the branches of service right there on the island. And I got to be good friends with some Army guys. Of course, we had crap. And of course, I'm going to get a brain fart right now. The Naval Station there. Jesus.
But I can look it up.
Where all the ships, when all the ships went down,
Pearl Harbor?
Pearl Harbor. There we go. Yeah, I had a
That's where
Navy
you're
guy
over.
that
Yeah, that's
was in
right.
Pearl Harbor. I had some Marine friends, and they would always come to my location. I never had to go to theirs. They
That's
always
funny.
came to visit me because when we go to we you go to the rec center, which was pretty nice, and of course meals. Oh my God, that was like walking into a 3-star restaurant and shit. I mean, it was, and but so in the grander scheme of things, like I said, I don't disparage anybody for going another route. There are days I wish I would have went in the Marines because I I I just didn't have the body type for it, and
It's
I
understandable.
probably would wind up in the brig if I'd gotten in there. Just saying, because they would have stoked that anarchist inside of me.
Yeah. Now, was there a specific moment or like family tradition, movie, book, whatever that really made you, finally say, "I'm about to go enlist now." Was there, or,
Well,
or
well,
was it a gradual thing, like you were saying? Was it gradual and like, "Hey, let's just make it happen"?
well, for me, the writing was on the wall even when I was young. My mom and dad didn't have a lot of money when I was growing up. It was mid or well, 70s, early 80s, and I got in 87. And around that time, the economy was in the tank. And
Got
like
it.
I said, my father worked for another company, and I don't want to disparage my father because he gave me lot of a lot of good advice and brought me up halfway decent. Um, he actually was one of 12 children, and he had 5 brothers, and every one of them had served in the military. When he was young, right at going through high school, that's when Vietnam was really kicking in around 66, 67, 68, 69. And he actually confessed he was ready to go jump the border. He didn't want nothing to do with it.
Huh.
And so I don't know. I don't know what really, other than the fact of being an Army ROTC and
Mhm.
realize that that was an avenue. I mean,
Yeah.
hell, 3 squares a day, room and board, and you get a
Amen.
decent job that you could transfer to civilian life,
You save money easily if you do it right.
and it ain't prison.
Right. Amen. Now, when if you think about your departure, Mega, when you think about when you left, when it comes to your family, do you remember? I know it was a while ago, but do you remember what those conversations were like with your family and friends before you left for basic training? Were they
Actually,
positive? Was it people were nervous? Like, why are you doing this?
no, I never got any of that. And again, like I said, I don't want to talk bad about my family, but things were pretty contentious before I left for the Air Force. My mom, I think the only reason why she kept me around is because I could cook halfway decent and do my own laundry and clean my own room. We used to get into some really seriously heated debates, intense moments of fellowship, I'd like to call it. And so I think she was ready for me to go. And I've always been a loner. That's the other issue that I've had. I only had one really good friend the whole time I was in school, and didn't chum around because my father actually was a pastor in a couple of churches. And so you got that background going on too.
Hmm.
And, so I was shielded from a lot of stuff. I didn't ever even went to the movie theater until I got away from my parents.
Oh,
Never went to a concert. I wasn't the guy well, I did steal my dad's pickup truck one time when they were gone. But anyway, we won't go into that either.
we've been there. I've been there too.
Yeah. But, well, I didn't steal it. I appropriated it for my
Yeah, I
niece.
borrowed my
Anyway,
my my
there we go. Yeah,
parents.
yeah, yeah. I don't want to get locked up here. But anyway, yeah. So most of my family, we didn't live next to family anymore. If we went, if we wanted to go see my grandmother, grandfather, or anybody, we actually had to plan a vacation. So it wasn't like a real tight knit family unit thing, other than
Hmm.
the nuclear family that I was in. But yeah, so there wasn't no tears when I left. It was more of a get the hell out of here and go live your life type deal. And I was happy for it. I embraced it. It
Hmm.
was it was it was awesome. Yeah. So
It's
nothing
so
about the family really.
No, it's good to go. So when it comes to expectation versus reality, so to speak, what did you think the military was going to be like, and how quickly did that reality set in once you hit those yellow footprints? And it'll be interesting to hear what it's like from an Air Force side.
A very interesting question that you asked that, because a lot of folks I hear my upbringing prepared me very well for basic training.
Here too.
Also, when I went in, um, dude, I was laughing. I had a TI that was so short, the brim of his hat would hit me right between the nipples in my
Is that what
chest.
they're called?
And
TIs?
yeah, they're called tech instructors or
Tech.
whatever. We called
Okay.
them TIs, but yeah, he got right up in my face, and I was so happy that he couldn't see my face, because the bill of his hat was just a thumping on my chest, and he was up one side, down the other, and I had a grin on my face from ear to ear. I was one of those guys that when I heard guys crying, and there were guys that cried in the Air Force basic training. I wasn't one of them. I got stories about that in basic training. There's some things I should have got washed back to the next flight. I mean, I could have gotten a bunch of shit, but because I was in ROTC for the 3 years in high school, I actually went in as an E3. So I was getting E3 pay, and I also had the opportunity
For-
to take a test and bail out of basic training 2 weeks early. And I didn't get any duties. I didn't have to mop the floors. I didn't have to do anything. I just had to take care of myself. Obviously, I helped my brothers and out, in basic, because
Mhm.
that's what it's all about team building and stuff.
Right.
But I was left to study, and I missed that damn test by one fucking point, dude. I was so pissed. And then at that point, everybody else already had a job. I didn't have anything to do. Dude, that was the basic training. I'm not shitting you, was probably one of the best experiences in the military for me. It was just awesome. I also
That's
I didn't start smoking until right before I got in the military, or right before I got in the Air Force. And I was the guy that I got a set of balls. Anybody that knows me, I'll walk them on a table anywhere. I would go up, knock on the TI's door. Sir, Airman Cheney reports as ordered. Come on in. What do you want? "Sir, my nicotine low level light's on. I need to go get some get some nicotine." And if it wasn't for me, nobody else would have got that time. Holy crap! You're like, "Yeah, okay, Airman Cheney, get your ass down there. Look, you got 10 minutes." Okay. So, oh yeah, I did.
That's
I had a
awesome.
blast in tech school.
What?
It
So
or
when you're
it in basic.
so with when you got to basic in the Air Force, do you already know your job, what you're going to be doing? But like before you
Yes,
go in, is that how that works? So when's your job?
absolutely.
Your MOS, your job. Can you explain your primary job in civilian terms, maybe as well, just so the people listening can understand where and what you were doing while you were in there?
Yeah, I please forgive me, and I do not have my DD Form 214 directly in front of me, but I signed up as a heavy aircraft maintenance guy, and I didn't realize exactly what that would entail. I got lucky, and I got to be a crew chief on KC 135s. And if anybody that doesn't know what those are, most
It's
people do.
nice.
They're aerial refuelers and cargo haulers. And I thought I was just going to learn how to work on an airplane. Well, I didn't realize what all that job entailed. And that led me down some really interesting paths as far as career wise. The best thing was out there, kicking the tires, lighting the fires, and getting those guys off the ground and having them come back.
Hmm.
So yeah, and I had a stellar record. Not one of my planes ever took off late, and
That's
they
awesome.
always made it to their destination, whether it was across the pond from Hawaii or any of the other locations I was at, and got back. So yeah,
Did you work with
it was crazy.
did you work with Marines a lot at all? And I asked that
Nope,
because no Marines, because our
nope.
last guest that we had, Corporal Schaffner, and I know he joins the X Space on Wednesdays, but he was talking to us about how he dealt with the C-130s. He dealt with the refuelers, all the different things. So it's awesome to hear another person talk about it, because we don't hear a lot of people. You get a lot of the pilots. We hear a lot of pilots.
Mm.
From helicopters and whatnot as well, but the mechanics, the mechanics and the people behind the scenes, the programmers, those are very important.
Yep, and you know what's interesting about that? I was actually on flying status. I was getting extra pay. I can't remember. I think I had to do a minimum of 8 hours flight time a month, which afforded me the opportunity. I traveled with my planes. I got to go to Alaska when I was stationed at Oscoda at
Mhm,
Fort Smith Air Force Base before they closed down. When I was in Hawaii, I went to March Air Force Base quite a few times to sit on alert.
mhm.
Um, and when I was in Idaho at Mountain Home Air Force Base, I got to go to a Bright Star over in Egypt, and that was quite exciting too. So yeah, I've
Wow.
slapped the ass of the Sphinx and touched the Great Pyramid. That was awesome. That was a highlight of that gig. But yeah, and being a crew chief, I it was right up my alley. I've always been that mechanically inclined guy, and on those planes and any plane out there, a lot of times you can't even see what you're working on. And you got to be able to visualize what's behind that based on a picture or a diagram in a tech manual. And
Mhm.
a lot of guys just could not get that. Your whole lefty loosey, righty tighty thing, and
Throw it out
then
the
putting
window.
it up inside of a hole that you can't see, and they're actually tightening it instead of, my God, it was. And then the worst part for me was, yeah, it was a Boeing 707 aircraft, four-engine airplane, but it's still set kind of low to the ground. And I'm 6'2", and the planes that I worked on had antennas on the bottom of those damn fuselage. Oh my God, I cannot tell you how many times I cracked my skull, screwed up my back, and all that, trying to get under the plane, removing chocks before the plane got ready to take off, or just regular maintenance. But yeah, yeah, I mean, it was pretty cool.
That is awesome. I know as far as the commo with us, when I was with 17 Cav, we did a lot with the tanks, and that's kind of like what happens when a tank. And I God bless them guys that are in a tank. Because when we had to get into a tank, you're sitting in the seat and the communications equipment's behind them. So I had to turn around and it's just a tight little area that just
Oh
barely
yeah.
fits the equipment. And you got to stick your hands, same idea, backward, forward, this way, that way, up, down is up. Yeah, it is. I do know what you mean. And it did. I would sometimes be sending some of the guys out. And I'm like, what took you guys so long? Well, then when I think about it, it's the guys that couldn't figure out left is right and right is left and up is down, down. And yeah, they couldn't figure it out. So it took them forever to do it. And that goes back to what I was going to also hit on with the MOS, because you're talking about being, in the, obviously it's a tight knit, I would imagine, group that you have there, and so
It's
the brotherhood. You hear about the bonds formed in the military. What do you remember? One person or a little group or a clique that you had that changed your trajectory, in the military, or you remember now that you said, "Man, that really changed my life," or it stayed with you. Do you remember anybody
well,
that first
I'm
time that
I'm gonna
happened?
be I'm gonna be honest with you. I was a lone wolf before I got in the military, and
Mhm.
I stayed a lone wolf. I was into hot rods. I can't. When I was in Hawaii, I campaigned a 70 formula, or not. Yeah, it wasn't a formula. I campaigned a 70 Firebird at the drag strip out there, and I was married. Got married pretty soon, or pretty early when I got stationed there.
Huh?
And so I had a lot of my own stuff going on. I didn't hang out with a lot of people. I'm a homebody in general. So I didn't really chum around with a lot of people. Now, obviously, the folks that helped me through my plane had some interactions with them, a little bit of personal stuff, but I never really ran into anybody because when I was in, there was a transition period where when I showed up at Hickam Air Force Base, I heard stories of the guys saying that what they would do is they get the plane launched, go back to the shop, get everything all put back, their tools and everything, and then wait for the plane to come back. And while they were doing that, the NCO club was at the end of the flight line.
Uh-huh.
And they would go to the NCO club and have a few toddies waiting for the plane to come back. Also, drug use and all that stuff. And when they're in the early or I should say not early 80s, in 87, 88, 89, military was really starting to phase that stuff out. So yeah, most of the time it was kind of like a job. It for me it was a
Mhm.
job. I was there to do my job and then go home, rest, and yeah, it is. I
That's it.
Nobody really. I
Nobody
feel
really,
sad
yeah.
about this.
No, some people don't. Some people don't, because some people have shitty leaders too. You know what I'm saying? Excuse my
Well,
language, but
that
some
yeah.
people, and they don't have anybody to look up to. They learn, themselves, and so no, there's no wrong answer. I'm just always curious, to know if there is anybody who changed the trajectory, or people in your life when you're in the military that you look back and you say, man, those people, I'm glad I was a part of their life at that time. That kind of thing.
During that time, this is just the way I am. I'm the guy, or was the guy. Nobody ever called me for a party, but if you needed some work done, I was the guy you called.
Got it.
And that's because I was all about business. When I got out there on that flight line, we had a mission, and I had, you know, when I was out in Hawaii, we had battle staff command planes. And if anybody doesn't know what that's about, sync pack. If you know anything about military stuff, in which obviously we're doing a military, hello, combat news. But anyway, sync pack. This is the guy that's directing Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Army. And they would fly on our plane. I wanted to make sure that that guy was going to get and do whatever job he had to do done. I didn't give a shit about anything else. And that I lament about that sometimes too, but it is what it is.
So
It
what
was a job.
looking back at your days in the military, what do you think your best day in uniform, the most memorable day in uniform, and on the other side of it, what was one of the toughest lessons you learned the hard way in the military?
The best day I ever had, they were all best days.
I
True
like it.
story. I don't get me wrong. I got called into the first shirts office a few times.
Yeah.
I was one of
Yeah.
those
I've
guys.
been there.
Nothing that was going to put me in a brig or get me a Article 15 or anything. But still, the whole point is I kept my nose just enough clean. Actually, hey, I got to go back on that. I was a tech manual guy. We were referred to as TODAs, and our main job was to ensure that our tech manuals for all of our aircraft in our squadron were up to date. And I got to eventually run TDOA at when I was out at Mountain Home Air Force Base, and I had our commander come in, and he was new, and everybody he was getting showed around by our shop chief, and I had R1 scattered all over our freaking damn my office. The chief come in there and he's like, Airman Cheney? I'm like, yes, sir. He's like, oh, that time I was Sergeant Cheney. He goes, Sergeant Cheney, here's your new commander. I mean, I got tech manual stuff all in my hand. And like I said, this thing, and for anybody that doesn't know anything about an R1, the book is 13 manuals thick, and each one is about 4 inches thick. And that all 14 of them were just scattered all over the whole thing. I got up, did my salute thing, freaking, and that commander, he gave me a little shit eating grin, and I was like, yeah, I'm keeping you up and running, buddy. Get out of my office. I got work to freaking do. And then I also got to go to aircraft battle damage school in Wright-Patterson, which was really awesome. Got
What's
to
that
punch a
entail?
hole in a C-130 and repair it to make it flight worthy. And then when I got back to my base, one of our exercises that we did, they said, yep, you're just came out of that school. We got an F-16 over here we need to mess up. So I went over there right in the wing root, just missed a massive bundle of wires. Got that repaired and got out of there. Got a good score on it. So yeah,
Well,
I've
that's
had some stuff. It
what
pretty
now.
cool shit.
As we're continuing to talk, think about, times in the military. I always ask this one question too. Throughout your military life, what do you actually find yourself missing? And what I mean by that is that we had one person that came on that talked about that they missed, the running or, the PT, waking up in the morning and doing PT. I'd never miss that. But I always am wondering, what do people actually miss from the military?
Well, the one thing I miss about the military is and nothing against civilians. You cannot beat a crew that has a mission. You know what I mean? Everybody knows their
Amen.
damn job, and everybody does their damn job. And if you don't do your job, there are ramifications and repercussions. And that is
Yes.
one thing I really miss. And then also, you can't argue. You can have disagreements, but you can't argue. The logic in the end has to take over the day. And in the civilian world, dude, it is a freaking pretzel to try to get anything done. I've run businesses and having to pat these guys and gals on their rear end and go, oh, you poor little thing. And I'm like, oh my God, just want to snap them in their neck. But yeah, that's the
Yeah.
thing I miss most about the military. Everybody had their job, they had their position, and if it was merit based,
Yes.
100%, at least up to the E4 Mafia part of it. Uh,
Mhm.
Anybody below E5, I would say, and below, if you were a worker, they were going to put you in positions to advance your career. And you don't see that today. And that's
No.
why I hate politics so much.
It's all pay to play. It's all who you know, pay to play. That's what it
Exactly.
boils
And
down to. And
yeah, and back then you didn't have to worry about that. Like I said, you
no,
put your
you
nose to the
earned your keep.
grindstone. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I tried my
It's
best. I didn't always succeed, but hey,
what you got, you earned, though, right, Mega? Whatever you got out of your life, you earned it, and it
that's
makes you
right.
feel a lot better when
Absolutely.
you earn things yourself. And now
Absolutely.
talking about earning things as we go into now transitioning out of the military. So when we transition out of the military life after service, the uniform shifts. You know what I'm saying? What was the
hmm
hardest part, Mega, about hanging up the uniform and and becoming a civilian again?
Well, it's just like I explained it. You go into a company, you get hired by someone, and I have worked a myriad of jobs. Where I'm at today was a whole bunch of off ramps and on ramps back onto life. And each one of those experiences has gotten me to where I'm at today. Military background, you come out into the civilian world, and especially if you've been in the military for any length of time. I only did 8.5 years. I figured during the Clinton administration, it was time for me to punch out, and they gave me a handful of money too. So I was like, okay. But, and then again, but that was in the 80s, or that was in the 90s. In 95, I got out, and
Okay.
we were having a tough time in the economy at that time too. But, well, I don't
Yeah.
know. It just, anyway, as far as the transition for me, the hardest part was now I didn't have people around me that I could rely on like I did when I was in the military, because they
Hmm.
just, everybody, they're there for a paycheck, or they're there for the benefits, the health
Hmm.
insurance, the dentist, and all the stuff and the
Yeah.
other. And you watch the jobs they do, and it's like, are you kidding me? If you'd have taken 5 more seconds, paid a little more attention, everything would have worked out great. But no, now we
Yeah.
got a piece of shit to deal with that we got to fix. It just nonstop. That's the biggest grind for me, is
Yeah. There's
they
no
just don't have the
pride.
vision and thinking far enough ahead. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
anyway,
And the camaraderie is definitely something that I missed a lot. Is and that's what you're kind of referring to, is having that people that you can rely on and trust and know that, hey, they're gonna do their part 110%, and you're gonna do your part 110%. You don't have to worry about people doing 80 and you having to pick up the other 20-30%, and that kind of shit. So I definitely excuse my language.
yeah,
I
we did.
definitely understand.
When I was in aircraft maintenance, we did have those people. They usually
Mhm.
wound up wiping all the hydraulic fluid off the side of the airplane, and making sure the tires were armor-alled and all that stuff. But yeah, yeah, you
That's
could
funny.
you could
So
you could position people.
what do you do now, Mega? That you're out and about. What's your current mission that you got happening? What's your goals that you got for the future of 2026? I know that a lot of people that in our community know you from the Veterans Open Forum that Combat News hosts, and also other spaces that we're a part of. You're a part of, all veteran focused. But you can talk about that a little bit too if you want. But yeah, we want to give us a little bit of synopsis of what you're doing now, and what your goals are.
Well, I'm going to tell you what really I've been like a balloon here lately, and that is a major problem, especially for a military guy. 8 years ago, I had a life altering event. I was successfully running a badass, nice income water well drilling company. I'd taken it over from my father in law, and I was out on a job site. This was in 2017. I was out on a job site, beautiful sunny day, and I was helping my guys get set up on a job site to drill a well for one of our customers. And at that time, I'm not like I was back then, but I was carrying 50-pound bags, two at a time, down to the rig. They were on a hill down below where parking was for the yard. And I had my third heart attack. And that heart attack, I got in a truck and I just didn't feel good. I drove myself back to the office and almost collapsed when I got in the office. My wife worked in the office, and she says, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "No, I'm not." And just white as a ghost. She wound up,
Oh,
we
good.
didn't call 911. I didn't even have insurance at that time. She called
Wow.
me, or she drove me to the hospital. And 2 weeks later, was supposed to be a quad bypass, turned into a triple because there's a part of my heart that just gone and it wasn't worth doing it. And then got a defibrillator
Dang.
installed. And uh, ever since then, I tried getting back into business. I just couldn't do it because, again, I'm a hands on kind of guy.
Mhm.
I can't stand sitting behind a desk. I got a college degree. I have bachelor's of science in business administration, but I decided to go drill water wells and play in the fucking mud and dirt. You know what I'm saying? And I enjoyed it. I was one of those guys. I was hoping I would die on the back of a rig. I didn't want to retire from it. Well, about 2 years into that gig, I also had really bad back issues. And I finally just got to the point where I couldn't take it anymore. And so now I've just been kind of wandering. I found myself, I think it's like a 6 year cycle for me. When I got out of the military, I had also been recently divorced, and it took 6 years for me to get in the swing. Don't get me wrong, I always had work, I always had things to do, but it just being able to get my mind cleared and take on another mission. And now my mission is starting to look more toward the VA and the shortcomings I see. We've had these conversations on X, you know. I hear you guys over there in New York saying how great your VA is. And I'm sitting here and talking to my buddies here in Michigan, going, that ain't how things work over here. And then hearing people
Hmm.
down in Texas, yeah, you know, until folks realize that each state runs their VA. The military does not run the VA. And it
Right.
ain't no different than when you get transferred from one location to another. This ain't base X. I'm sure you've heard that before. Hey, this
Mhm.
is how we did things back at this
Yeah.
place, and they worked out great. And first words out of the chief's mouth, this is not base X. Get your ass out of my office type deal. So
Yes.
in the VA, I'm not real happy with our VA, and
Mhm.
I am looking at starting to expose and figure out how this system works, because after I got out of the Air Force, it was 25 years before I got into the system. I didn't want anything to do with any government, anything. I didn't give a
Well,
crap. And now that I'm in it, oh my gosh, you want to talk about a learning curve. So
yeah.
that's kind of been my mission, getting the word out, and then also voting our political system
Hmm.
and getting veterans involved in the system, not
Amen.
necessarily to run for office, but to start making better choices. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
There's a
Amen.
process
Yeah.
here, there's a system in place, and we
And
just
we
got to
fought
learn
for
how to
that
use it.
system.
Yeah. Well, you know, and a lot of people get used to those golden handcuffs. Everything's going fine in my neck of the woods. I got my job, I got my
Yep.
dog, I got my wife, I got my kids, I got my badass car, I got my piece of property. I don't care about anything else. Well, they don't
Yeah.
realize it's coming for you one day. I don't care if you live in the
Yep.
heart of downtown New York City or out in
Hmm.
Podunk, USA, rural
Yes.
Michigan. You're going to have to pay attention. And in light of recent events, you need to really start paying some super attention. So I've been
Yep.
helping out on some other spaces and, of course, on our space. And, you know, yeah, that's kind of my mission. I'm kind of
Yeah. No,
still,
it's been good, and you've been doing amazing. I know a lot of us talk about you. That's why I'm so glad we can get this podcast out. So then, especially
oh shit.
New York and upstate New York veterans can actually see you, hear you, because you definitely make an impact when you come in. You're always supportive of every veteran group that you come into. You always give your insight. And what I like about you the most is that, just like you were saying, you don't take it personal to us that when we talk about the VA is like this, the VA is like that, because it hasn't always been like that. We fought hard, we're trying to work hard with the community. But what I like about you is that you take it personally to the point where you say, okay, well, then I am going to make it so my area is just like that area. And whatever I have to do, I am going to ensure that that happens. And I love that fight in you. We love that fight in you, and that's what more veterans need to do around, the United States, is to say, hey, listen, I don't know everything, but I'm going to talk to this person who knows a little bit, this veteran that knows a little bit. And together, we're going to make sure that a veteran here in Rochester and a veteran that's in Michigan is getting the same damn treatment, because it's not fair that they're running their own entities. And I know Doug Collins has spoken about that before, where, with that, the one example he gave was a guy who got stuff with his prosthetic for 12 years or something at one VA, went to another VA. That VA said, "Oh, no, we don't do that at the VA." What?
Yeah,
What?
it's insane the stuff that veterans have to go through. If I go on vacation, anywhere in the United States, which I have a tendency to do occasionally when the wife lets me and she's willing to come along.
Mhm.
I would never think about going into another VA because the way the system works, they're talking about going completely digital for health records and whatnot. While that's awesome, at my own VA, my primary care physician can't see my mental health records, and mental health can't see what's going on I mean, they have siloed stuff, and instead of being able to take the whole veteran approach,
Mhm.
they just want to focus on the tip of your nose
Yes.
or your shoulder or
Mhm.
the end of your penis. I mean, you got to look at this guy or gal as a whole person and realize and incorporate it in their healthcare, because I've actually had this happen where one hand wasn't talking to the other, and you could get really screwed up really fast. And I know
Yeah.
that's what's happened to a lot of veterans and why we're in the situations we're in today. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's this
When you
this is a conversation I think we need to have for another time, but
We can have, yeah,
because
we should do. We'll be doing more podcasts for sure because I think we
all right,
together we could be putting out some good information. And now I want to touch on really quick the far as what people don't understand spaces or whatnot. But when people that do understand, they know what it's about, but sometimes they still don't want to be a part of it. What would you say to people who are on the fence? To coming on and just listening. We always say you don't have to speak, you just listen. What would you
yep.
tell them about the benefits of coming together in, like, say, the Veterans Open Forum on Wednesdays and other veterans, spaces that are out there on X? What would you say?
Well, and I actually, aside from combat news, I'm not actually a part of you guys. I think I am. I'm affiliated pretty strongly, but
We're all combat news.
yeah, you know what? And to your point, absolutely correct. We are all combat news. Every veteran has a voice. Every veteran needs to express themselves, and I
Yes.
get it. A lot of people don't. They think that if you get in spaces, you got to speak, and then you get those other folks that think, "Oh yeah, I'm in a space, I get to speak." You know what I'm talking about? So and a lot of times, if you don't have a good host with co-host, the space can go sideways, and sometimes that's valid. Now, I help host USA Military Connections. We're a
Mhm.
online on X. We're an online group, and also on True Social, and I help co-host Headshot Shit Show on Sunday nights. I actually had to
Uh,
host that myself because he had a family event this last Sunday, and it's if you hear that someone else is having the same problem you're having, and even if they don't have a solution, anybody out there that will tell you that going it alone is your best option, you're retarded as the day is long. When we get the opportunity, and especially in these spaces, to bounce ideas off of each other, come together with our issues. And I brought some stuff up in those spaces, especially on your combat news X space. And somebody goes, "Well, what about this? And what about that?" And it's like, okay, yeah, I'm not an island. I can't be an island. I have to have inputs from my brothers and sisters out there. Somebody's
mhm,
got a solution for my issue. And
mhm.
I think that's the best thing about spaces. Come in, be a listener. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Sometimes we can be pretty entertaining. Sometimes, and like I said, it could be a total shit show. Just depends on the vibe of the room that night. And, but I usually have a good time, especially, because military guys, we and gals have a different way of handling stress, and you get the name calling,
Yes,
and
sir.
we're all doing it in fun. Anybody goes in there and they got their heart on their sleeve, yeah, you might want to stay down in the listener section, because I'll give you a box of crayons if that's what's required, or that kind of stuff.
That's
So
awesome.
it is what it is.
Yeah.
I enjoy it. I thoroughly enjoy them. I think they're great therapy, actually.
That's what I was just gonna say. I tell people all the time, I think it gets the wrong. People take it the wrong way. They think it's like a gossip, talk about the political world, talk about this is bad, the VA is bad. Well, it is. I mean, we do talk about those things, but the only time those things come out is because a veteran is expressing, or the veteran's family member is expressing their life, something that's happening. And
Yep,
if you don't look at
absolutely.
that whole picture and you're just looking at, they're on this space and they're just talking bad about our organization or the VA, then you're in the wrong. Because if you listen to the whole thing, we're actually caring about what a veteran and their family, what their issues are, what they're even what's good happening in their life. Some veterans will come on and say, "Hey man, I just started a non-for-profit, got an event coming up, boom, boom," and we talk about that stuff. So
Absolutely.
it's a fellowship is what I call it. It's where it's a
Yes.
kumbaya, like a MWR. Everybody comes together. We talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, but you're always going to get the real information from actual boots on ground veterans and family members and organizations that don't have any skin in the game. That's what I like most about it. No agenda, no direction, just veterans helping veterans.
Well, to that point, you're gonna get your guys. I'm one of them too. When I'm having a bad time, everybody around me's having a bad time. But at the same time, you know what I'm saying? When shit goes
Hmm.
wrong, I want it fixed.
Yes.
I don't
Uh
want the
huh.
runaround. I don't want the bull crap that comes with, all the red tape. And but at the same time, I've had my down moments in your space, and I probably sound like a broken record sometimes. But then we have those other times where it's just, you know, we don't talk about shit. It's just talking
Mm.
shit. And
Yeah.
so those are some of my best memories of our spaces. Yes, it's great to have some good information. It's kind of hard to get professionals or experts in their field to help out with the X spaces. Veterans, we have a different way of handling things. Like I said, it is what
Uh
it is. But I'm glad I ran into your space when I first found that. You guys, you're a little, you guys is comedy. That's what sucked me in. And once I was in there and
huh.
I got my mic the first time, I was like, oh yeah, I felt that camaraderie again that I
Yeah.
was missing so much in the civilian world. So thank you, Sarge. I really
No,
appreciate that you've been
absolutely.
doing that. And I look forward to every one of your X spaces, brother. And now your
No, we
podcast.
appreciate it.
Uh,
Yeah. Well, we look forward to seeing you all the time too, because I tell you what, when you're not there, but how many people? Where's Mega? Where's Mega? They'll message me. I'm like, you guys don't even know him. He's not even from here. You know how many people say, "Oh, does Mega come to our comp here?" I said, "Mega's not even from our area." They're like, "Really? He's always with Combat News." I said, "Yes, because that's what we do. We stick together." I said, "That's veterans need to
Absolutely.
stick together, one team, one fight." And the biggest fight that we have right now as veterans, what we need to realize is the information fight, the knowledge fight. That battle,
Yes.
listen, that's the battle that we're fighting, man, because that's what they're using against us to hold us down.
And I actually got in a space the other day and I made an emphatic statement. And had I done just a little bit more research, I wouldn't have made said statement. And you know what I wound up doing? I contacted the guy that was in charge of that space, military guy, no less. And I says, brother, I got to apologize. I misspoke. And he says, you know what? I was glad you were there. The information you gave us was awesome. I says, well, I would like to get back in your space again and apologize to all your folks that are regular listeners and participants. And because I don't want that on me. I'm all about
Yeah.
everybody has an opinion, and that's awesome. We all need our own opinions so that we
Mhm.
can sharpen each other. But misinformation is not the way to go. And I actually yesterday went back on, they had another space yesterday, and I apologized to everybody. And they're like, yeah, anytime. Next time we have a space, I'll DM you and have you come in and talk to us and stuff. So
That's cool.
that's what I really appreciate the homework that you and Bill and Brian and a couple of the other guys in there. I can't name them right off the top of my head, but
Oh, blank.
if you guys come with information, you got good information, and it's the fact. I haven't heard anybody have to recant anything, and that's my goal for going forward. Just a little bit of research, get your facts straight,
Mhm.
bring it to the table, and let it lie where it goes.
Yeah, and I'm gonna thank you for saying that because I'm a firm believer is that it's all about accountability. And we always say at Combat News, if we have some information that we put out that is that might not be totally right, or maybe the numbers changed or something, because we do try to do our due diligence to make sure that we have better numbers. Like, for instance, not to toot our own horn, but we're working on to have better numbers. You know, how there's not really any databases for veterans, disabled veterans. So what we're doing is we're taking census, all these surveys, and we're trying to get it so the up and down, the up and down numbers are a little bit
Hmm.
less, closer. We don't need up and down 5,000, up and down 1,000, per a county. No, we need, or per a town, we need to shrink that down. So we're trying to do our due diligence so then we can ensure that the information is correct. And I encourage anybody, if we do come across the wrong way or if the information is not right, to let us know, because we will come and correct that, because we want to bring real information, because we don't have information as far as the veterans are concerned. Your local media is not having a veteran section of this is what's happening in the veteran community. So we want to
Yeah,
ensure that the information you do get from Combat News, and of course from other spaces as well, that it's right, it's factual. So please, we keep us accountable, because we're going to keep everybody else accountable too.
absolutely. And to your point there, they don't make it easy to get this information. So
Uh,
anybody that's out there listening,
yeah.
I highly encourage you, if you're sitting on the sidelines and listening to the conversations that we're having in those spaces or on this podcast or any future podcast, do not hesitate to support these veterans that are out there actually trying to get this information out. I don't know what you have set up on your end there, Sarge, but when I'm my podcast, you can, subscribe. That's the other thing too. I don't know what all's going on here. I can't see like a Rumble channel setup or anything, so I don't know. I know you're going to be going on multiple platforms with this broadcast. Should you not cut 90% of what I said out? But
No, we don't.
uh,
We just keep it moving,
it
baby.
and it
We're
is what
real.
it is, but supporting your veterans that are actually out there beating the bushes, getting this information because, like I said, they don't make it easy for us. And
Mhm.
so support Sarge Combat News. You can support me.
Absolutely.
I'm retired. I got nothing better to do all day. So this is my mission other than taking care of grandkids occasionally. And I'm married to a beautiful, phenomenal superwoman that runs our accounting small business solutions firm. And so I got to do dishes and sweep the floors every now and again to earn my keep. Yeah. So I wanted to give props to her because without her, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Spouses definitely lead the way, man. I know people know that without my wife, I mean, she's my rock. She's my rock, my secretary, my everything. She keeps me in
yeah.
line for sure. She gets me
Yeah. And
squared away.
I had two practice runs for this one. This is the longest I've been married or involved in any other individual on the planet other than my parents. Actually, I've lived with her longer than I did with my parents. So if that's saying anything, she can put up with Mega Nuke.
Yeah,
I'm a
that's
blessed
awesome.
man. Yeah.
It's awesome. Well, the last question I had, and then we we'll get to the other things that I had here. If you could sit down with yourself at three different stages of your life, right? So before you sign the papers, during your service, and the day you transition back into civilian life, what would you tell your younger self before you
That is
sign the
a
papers?
interesting question, and I'm going to be honest with you. There wouldn't be anything I would be able to tell myself at those moments. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I was that kind of guy. I've always pondered the question, what if myself showed up to tell myself where I'm messing up? First thing that would happen is my defibrillator would go off and I'd probably be dead in 2 seconds because it would shock the shit out of me. So in the grander scheme of things, when I got out of the military, I actually sat down and wrote a letter to myself. At some point in the future, I may allude to what got me actually out of the military. It was a really rough time in my life. I was running a race to get out with an honorable discharge. Not that I was doing anything illegal or anything. It's just family issues. My first wife, kids. Uh, I actually had an 18-month-old daughter die while I was in the military.
Oh man,
And
sorry.
I'm going to tell you right now that that put a major hurting on me. And after I got out, I sat down and I wrote a letter to myself. And to this day, I can't find that letter, but I can remember what I did say to myself. And that was,
Um,
this ain't the end of the road. Life is going to get
mhm,
hard. And as hard as it has been up to this point, there is a silver lining to every issue that comes about. And
mhm.
that's,
Amen.
sometimes I've strayed off that path and was like, yep, the whole world is nothing but a shit show and it's time to punch out. But at the end of the day, there is always a silver lining. There is always a silver lining. And if anybody can't vision that, I highly suggest to take a serious look inside yourself. You've had some really awesome moments in life. And yes, you've had some really shitty moments in life. But if your life was a nonstop happy place, how would you even know what a good life was actually about? You got to have the low points to sharpen you, to make you a better man, better woman. That would
Mhm.
be my advice to myself at all three stages and throughout my entire life.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. And I tell people when they say that I can't do this anymore. I'm going to give up. I'm going to give up. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. I tell them, I said, you know what? We all thought that about 30, 40,000 times already. And guess what? We found that light. We jumped over that hurdle. We got out of that dark place. So if we just remember once in a while that we've done it before and we could do that shit again, that's what we need to remember that, man.
It isn't so much about, because I've always thought this. What do they teach you when you get in the military? They teach you that where you thought the line was, guess what? That's all in your mind.
Yep.
That line only exists because you believe it exists. I know you went through this. I know our Marine friends. I know our Navy friends. I
Mhm.
know our Coast Guard friends have all went through this process. And I think Space Force, but anyway, they're light years ahead of us. So anyway, you are taught that just because you have a line there, that is not the line. And I think a lot of our fellow veterans lose sight of that training that got put in us and can't remember how good the feeling was to realize that, okay, that was my line. And here
Mhm.
I am 10, 20 paces in front of that line now. And
Yep.
you can look back at that line and go, that was really stupid. That wasn't the end of the road. And take that to heart because that's what I think. A lot of our veterans have forgot what they went through and what they learned in life. Ooh ah
Amen.
TIs, at least in the Air Force.
Amen. So before we wrap this up, I want everybody to know how can they find you? Can you tell us your socials, especially on X? I know people who know you or who follow us can now obviously see your name through us, but can you let everybody know how to get and follow you and your mission and your work as well? Because we'll tag you as well when we post this, but I just want people to know where to find you and how to get a hold of you.
Well, I really appreciate that. And you could find me on X at my handle is Mega Nuke, and I'm at Nuke underscore Mega, and I can't remember the rest of the thing. 63623 something. And then anyway, just look up Mega Nuke and you'll see my
Got
face.
it.
That's the way it goes. And then over on Rumble, you can go look I am a Nuke Mag, where I host the Mega Nuke podcast. I haven't
All
been
right.
real active on that here lately. I've been trying to get my studio set up, and I highly encourage you guys, if you want to see somebody that doesn't mind jumping head first in the short end of the pool, go check out my podcast on Rumble. You will see a diamond in the rough, and we're talking dirty, nasty, really rough. But you know what? I've enjoyed my time over there, and I actually have a podcast I'm going to be doing here shortly. I have a lady that is an archaeologist. I ran into her during another podcast that I mod for, and she's a archaeologist and can read Babylonian Sanskrit scrolls.
Wow.
She has done a
Wow.
lot of stuff, and I'm going to interview her. She has some really cool stories that she tells. I've been in conversations with her. She's older than we are. Has had some health issues, with the winter stuff going on, getting sniffles and whatnot. So hopefully I'll be getting that podcast together and out to the public. And other
Yeah.
than
Well,
that,
let us
I do have
know.
a True Social. I don't get over there very often. Very rarely do I get over there. My two main platforms are X and just look up Megan Nuke. You should be able to find me pretty easy.
Yeah, and I encourage all my my fellow veterans and followers to definitely check him out because he is definitely part of the combat news world, just like everybody else here listening and abroad are as well. And we always say we are combat news. If you believe in transparency, accountability, and just to the fellowshipping of veterans to try to have their lives be a little bit easier, then you're combat news. Nothing. There's no special trick to this. No magic wand. We just want to make sure that veterans are the ones giving veterans the right information, any information, and is given by people who don't have skin in the game. And if you do have skin in the game, then that means that you have earned your keep to where you didn't forget where you came from, because a lot of times people move up through the echelon being a veteran in the civilian sector and they forget where they came from and they start working for the political machine. But that's something that Megan Nuke and I will definitely
That ain't
talk about, maybe doing our podcast about.
that
No,
ain't
no, I'm
this
saying we
guy.
could talk about those.
No,
We could
no, I
talk
get you.
about
I
those
get you,
things.
brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, thank you
Well,
so
it was a
much, Megan
pleasure
Nuke.
being
And I
on your
hope,
show, brother.
yeah, and,
It
and
was a
on
pleasure.
Wednesdays,
Thanks for having me.
please come see Megan Nuke. Come talk to us because he comes to our space. The Veterans Open Forum on Wednesday nights at 1900. So if you do want to continue the conversation with him, hear more from him, hear what we talk about on the Veterans Open Forum, come by, come check us out. Search up Megan Nuke on X. You guys know, search up me, Sergeant Mitchell 88, SGT Mitchell 88 on X as well, and you can find us and see what it's all about. But we encourage more veterans to jump on the train, because we are going to try to keep this moving. We want veterans from all different states to dig your heels in and say enough is enough, and just start asking questions. That's it. If you don't know, ask questions. If you don't like the answer, go research it, go back again, come to us, go to other people. But together with the numbers and the knowledge, the sky's the limit. And that's what we need to keep uplifting each other. We need to remind the civilian sector that veterans don't need handouts. Stop spending all this taxpayer money. We need a hand up. We don't need a hand out.
Absolutely.
And I think you'll see that if you are a part of veteran spaces, you will see that veterans don't want that to have the taxpayers suffer. You know what I mean? They just want a hand up, not a hand out.
We don't want you guys wasting your money.
Absolutely.
Believe it or not, we really don't want taxpayers wasting their money, of
Mhm.
which most of us are taxpayers. So we have a
Yes.
vested interest in
Amen.
that. On that note, thanks, Sarge.
Oh,
Nuke.
yes.
Out.
Thank you, Mega. Appreciate you. God bless, brother.
Have a good day.
No drill, this is the truth. From Roxas to streets, hear the veterans' youth and the wisdom of ages. Battle hardened and true, combat news on the air, breaking through for me and you. We're boots on the ground, voices strong and clear, cutting through the static, conquering every fear. Monroe County to NYS, our message rings out wide for every soldier, every family standing side by side. Combat news, yeah.